Hey guys, it's Siffa here. So I'm going to do a little video today about the process and the ways that you can be put inpatient against your will. Now this has actually unfortunately happened to me a few times, which is kind of embarrassing, but it was a long time ago, many years ago. So I'm just going to talk about that a little bit, and I'm not trying to scare you guys, so don't be afraid or anything. I'm just gonna kind of go about it and kind of give you some ideas of what it's like, when it happens, how it happens, and hopefully this will help you. But I'm not trying to freak anyone out or anything. Okay, so I'm gonna tell you about the process and why it happens, when it happens, and then at the end I'll tell you when it happened to me. Okay, so typically the rule, at least in America, the rule of thumb is that if you are at harm to yourself or others, they can technically put you in the hospital against your will. Now, are they going to do that? Probably not. It's actually, from what I understand, it's pretty rare for people to get put in against their will. Like, for instance, I know people that have attempted suicide many times and gone to the emergency room and had their stomachs pumped, and they were not put in the hospital, in the psych ward, I mean. They were not put in the psych ward, which is outrageous, because I'm like, well, I never did any, but, so you're not always, it's kind of arbitrary. So, some doctors are more likely to do it than others, and also it depends on what you've done, like, whatever your circumstance is. Like, for instance, my therapist, I've seen this therapist for about 3 or 4 years now. She said that, in her, 20-30 years of being a therapist, she's only had to do it twice. For all of her, hundreds, thousands of patients, whatever, she's only had to put 2 people in against their will in her entire career. So, some therapists and doctors and psychiatrists don't really do it that often, or they try not to if they can. Now, okay, that's a good question that just popped in my head. Who can do it? Who can put you in a psych ward against your will? A therapist can do it, a doctor, like a psychiatrist, can do it, or a regular doctor can do it. So any therapist or doctor can put you in a psych ward against your will. But it's not, that common. I guess the reason that it happened to me is that, if the doctors that the first time it happened was with a doctor that I had just seen. And I don't think he really understood that I wasn't gonna kill myself. Like, I told him that I was thinking about slitting my wrists, and he misunderstood me, and I think that he kind of jumped on that and was like, oh, well, she's gonna slit her wrists, so we're putting her in the hospital, blah, 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 And, when he didn't know me well enough to know that it was an ideation and not an actual plan, So, so if you have a doctor that you know well, please don't be open with them. Don't be afraid to tell them if you're, going to self-injure or if you're thinking about suicide, because they're more than likely going to talk to you about it. They're not just going to throw you in the psych ward like this. But it does happen, but please still be open with your therapists and your doctors and still tell them things. But make sure that they understand that if you say something that, like, you're thinking about suicide or thinking about cutting yourself, they have to know that if there's a distinction between if you're really serious about killing yourself or if it's just like a thought that's passing through your head. Because ideation is just like thoughts that go through your head, but you're not totally serious about it. And so they need to understand that distinction, and that will make it easier for you. Now, if you do get put inpatient against your will, and by inpatient, I mean in a psychiatric facility, like a lockdown, locked-in, 24-hour facility. When you get in, you can sign a 72-hour release form. And what that means is that as soon as you get in, you sign a 72-hour release, and that means that they have to let you out within 3 days. They have to. Now, they can fight this in court, but normally they don't want to do that because it's a lot of work for them. So you can do that if you don't want to. But my advice for you is if you do get in the psych ward somehow, I would try to just get the best out of it that you can. I'd try to get the help you can get there, and I wouldn't just try to leave immediately, because the more you fight it, the worse it is in the psych ward. So I would kind of just go with it. Because it's not all bad. It's not all bad in there. You know, there can be some help in there. Um, so, my experiences now. So, the first time it happened to me was when I was, basically what happened is that I had been self-injuring. This was when I was like 19, I think, or 18. I'd been self-injuring, and I was always self-injuring then, you know. And my mom found some like bloody clothes in my room. I'm sorry, that's really graphic, but she found some bloody clothes in my room, but it was from like months ago. So she called my psychiatrist and had him send me to be seen at an emergency room. And so I went to the emergency room, and the doctor just like flipped his shit. And I told him that he asked me all these questions. I told him that I was thinking about slitting my wrists. And so he just shoved me in the psych ward, you know, without any questions. Was totally pissed off. And so that was weird. And then I kind of had to go, I was kind of forced into a residential place. But that's a different story. The second time that I was technically forced into the psych ward was when I almost died by hurting myself so badly. And that I kind of understand, you know, that makes sense to me. Because that kind of, it wasn't a suicide attempt, but like I almost died from self-injury. And they forced me in the psych ward. I can't really blame them. It was a horrible experience, but I don't really feel like angry about it or anything. Because, I mean, what are you supposed to do? I basically, for all intents and purposes, I basically, you know, attempted suicide. Although I didn't. It was a parasuicidal attempt. But anyway, so, I hope I covered everything. If you have any questions, let me know. Thanks, guys.